Well, guys, it's Tuesday, and actually, no, jeez, I'm losing it. It's Wednesday. We were supposed to be going to FL2K today, but things did not go as planned, which really sucks. I really wanted to make FL2K. Now, if you guys don't know, we're in Amarillo, Texas, and so we're about 22 hours from Florida, and I made the trip last year, literally got the car done. We didn't make a bunch of huge changes, but we did make a few changes that we wanted to make before we went to Florida, and we made them. We got the car done Sunday, and we were ready to go. Kennedy, myself, and my buddy Enrique loaded up and went to FL2K. We had a few issues when we got there. You guys can go watch some of the old videos, but essentially we qualified, ran in the fastest class for street racer or street car, whatever it is. And we had a really good time. It was a ton of fun. It was a good learning experience, but overall, like a weekend traveling and racing and coming back in good health is always a good time. And when your car doesn't break, it's always a good time too. Then, you know, we raced the car a little bit after that. Had a street car takeover last November. And pretty much the car's been down since then. And I'm not going to repeat myself too much because, well, you guys have seen all the updates, and I've tried to keep you guys as updated as possible. And pretty much the last update you guys got was that we were trying to make FL2K, and we were putting Holley EFI or Holley Dominator on the car. So kind of going to show you guys everything we did and really the reason why it didn't get finished. And honestly, none of it is really Joe's fault or my own fault. It's kind of, I've told people this, that with the Gen 3 stuff, and this is why a lot of people ask me some Gen 3 questions, is because I've always been like the guinea pig for the Gen 3. Like a lot of stuff that myself and John Lund Jr. have tried on the Gen 3 stuff, we were some of the first ones to do. And that's, you know, the fun of it, and then the not so fun side of it, because you spend a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of downtime because you're trying new things that haven't been tested on the platform before. I'm not gonna say it's easy, but the cars have now been out, you know, a couple years, the Gen 3s, and it's pretty easy to run 8s in these things. And it's really starting to get close to pretty easy to run 7s in these things. Now, I say easy as in, like, if you told me, David, I want a low 8-second, possibly a high 7-second car, and you didn't have a budget, I could build you one. A lot of people's problem is the budget, but I know the recipe. A lot of people know the recipes out there now to make the cars go that fast. And that's just how fast these cars are getting, which is insane to think about. But literally, if you said, I want a low 8-second car or a high 7-second car, and you didn't have a budget, you could drop your car off with me and I can make it happen. I was doing that stuff, and Manuel from Midnight was doing that stuff before. You know, we were doing that stuff before a lot of people with the Gen 3. Now, he was doing that stuff before regardless, but a lot of that stuff I did on the Gen 3 before a lot of other people were. And, you know, that's why we had the stock motor record for a while. That's why we have the Gen 3 record with direct injection stock PCM on Gen 3. And that's why Midnight has it, because they've been testing and doing a lot of stuff that nobody else has been doing. Anyways, let's go over what we did do to the car. You guys already know all the upgrades we did to the car, but let's go over some of the stuff that Joe did and show you guys how badass this wiring job turned out. So it kind of looks like a mess right now because we essentially had to leave a few wires hanging for the next phase. Yes, there's gonna be another phase of this car. Sorry, I was zoomed in, but this was all nice and tidied up. Pretty much this whole harness will sit under the manifold like so. But we left it loose because there's a few things we have to wire up. So Joe did a custom, so this is a Maven mount. He makes these for like roll bars. So you can see like it's actually for a roll bar, but Joe mounted it to the strut tower. We did Holley smart coils. So Joe wired in Holley smart coils. These are the nice ones that have like the extra power and ground wires. So Joe did the Holley smart coils on both sides. They're pretty symmetrical. We did custom Firecore wires from Firecore. Spec those out. The dude ships them the next day. It's insane how fast his turnaround is. But yeah, he ships them next day. Joe did, where is it? There's the Deutsch connector for the dome pressure sensor. So if the dome pressure sensor ever has a problem or I need to remove it without removing like all the lines, I can just unplug it there and remove it, nice and easy. Got fuel pressure regulator, oil pressure sensors down there. We had to do a single cable alternator. So the car had to get a different alternator with just a single cable on it because you delete, you know, the factory has like that pulse width stuff, pulse modulated stuff. And it's kind of a pain to get that to work with Holley. I'm sure you could, but it's a lot easier to do like a single wire alternator. Down there, these are our boost solenoids, increase and decrease solenoids. So those have a Deutsch connector back there. It's kind of hard to see because the fender and everything is back on the car. But when we had the car jacked up, you could see it a lot better. But anyways, got the solenoids mounted down there. We had to change a lot of these ends for the sensors. So had to get all those fixed up. Like I said, those will all look clean once the manifold's back on and they'll be all hiding underneath. We've got our power and ground post right there that we pretty much run everything off of. And then probably what Mr. Streetcar Joe is known for is these boards that he does. So I bought a larger sheet of carbon and I pretty much said that's where I want it mounted. So he trimmed it, fits around the roll bar right there. And this is what Joe's known for right here is these really clean panels that he does. So where we ran into some problems was we were stressed for time, so I'd ordered a relay board like this, a small one that was a negative trigger for my buddy Matt, because that's all I could get that was in stock. Well, then when I ordered the switch panel up top, that wasn't a ground trigger. So Joe actually was able to find one of these, which this is the original one I wanted. I just didn't want to wait 12 weeks for it. But in hindsight, I've waited so long, might as well have just waited for it. But anyways, so this is my relay board. It has a ton of inputs, but essentially everything is tied into this. The headlights, trans brake, any lights, any accessories, anything that's powered and needs a relay is literally ran off of this. The fans, everything. So ignition, everything is tied into that. And then you got the main Holley computer right there. Got your trans brake solenoid protection. So in case like it sends a signal back, it doesn't fry the ECU. And then got the solid state relay. This is for the air shifter. Joe made this cool little carbon panel that holds it. But this is for the air shifter. So all we have to do now is hook up the air lines, but all the cables are ran for the air shifter. And let me go to the other side. But just look at that damn board. That is so sick. Honestly, that's my favorite piece. Like I think when I put the dash back on, I want to cut around that just so you can see that. All new power and ground cables throughout the car. Don't pay attention. We have parts everywhere right now. We just moved into the shop. But yeah, so like I said, all I have to do is run the CO2 lines. I got to run a ground for this. But all the harness and everything is done for the air shifter, which is sick. And then we got the harness for, so what's pretty cool is this is trans brake. This is line lock, or no, sorry, green is line lock. The red one, I believe, is bump and scramble. So what's cool is in the Holley, the reason why I had 3 buttons before is because I had trans brake, a bump, and then a scramble separately. And then line lock, I had an extra switch over here somewhere. But what's cool in the Holley is you can actually use the same trigger for different things. So it knows, when the trans brake is lit up, it knows that this one is going to be used for bumping, and then it knows that when the trans brake is not on, this one's going to be used for scramble, and then this one just be line locker. However Joe set it up, I got to double check before we go make some test hits. But we got the wires ran up super nice through there. I just got to put all the grommets and stuff back in. Mechanical throttle pedal, mechanical brake pedal, which I've had mechanical brakes for a while, but now we've got a mechanical throttle pedal, which I need to hook up. I decided to keep the AEM dash because I spent a lot of money on that and already had it instead of buying another dash, the Holley. So I ended up just keeping the AEM dash, which I like, and then I put a new Motion Raceworks column adapter on there so it can hold that nice and firm. But it doesn't look like a lot, but it is a ton of wiring to get all that stuff to work. Like underneath, we've got drive shaft speed sensor. We got the trans fan in the back, all wired up with the Deutsch connector. Got the rad fan up front. all nice and Deutsch connected. There's a lot that goes into it that you might not see, especially once like this whole harness is tucked under the intake manifold. You won't see any of these things. So, takes me to my next point. So why didn't we make FL2K? Okay, so things we found out, and you know what's crazy is people pay for this kind of information, but things we found out is the Holley, essentially, the harness was set up for a Gen 2, which we knew, I talked about in previous videos. But, so what we tried to do is essentially wire in the crank sensor and the cam sensor from a Gen 3 to the Gen 2 harness, which we figured out which wires have to go where. We were getting a signal, but we weren't getting the pulse width from it. So it wasn't actually reading it. So the crankshaft sensor we figured out, which a lot of people probably knew this already, but we knew and kind of figured out at the same time that you can just switch the crankshaft sensor and the reluctor wheel and that rear main cover. Because a lot of people are starting to do Frankenstein builds is what they call them, where you pick up because you can get a Gen 3 block brand new with pistons, rods, everything from Ford for pretty inexpensive. I want to say for like a couple grand. And then you could throw like your, if you have a Gen 1 or Gen 2 Coyote, you could throw like the Gen 2 heads on it. And you've got a pretty stout block if you can't afford to do like a super nice built RPG engine or something like that. So a lot of people are doing those, and all they're having to do is switch the crankshaft sensor, the reluctor wheel, and the rear main cover, and everything else works pretty good. What you can't do, and what we found out, was the cam sensors. The cam sensors are different. So on a Gen 3, the cam sensors are right here up top. There's 2 up top here, and then 2 on the backside over there. They're the same 2 wire plugs, but they're completely different. A Gen 2 is on the backside and reads off of a different, it's got like a little sprocket gear on the back of it, and the spacing between that and the amount of teeth that is on it is very specific for it to get a pulse width reading off of it. Whereas the Gen 3 reads from up top on a different, essentially the pulse widths it reads are different on a Gen 3 to Gen 2. Now I don't know all the science specifics behind it, just know that we did a lot of research. The Gen 2 and Gen 3 cams are different, and in Holley you can't type in a custom cam feature. Whereas like if you have a different reluctor wheel and crankshaft sensor, you can actually type in, custom parameters for like how many teeth it's gonna read. But for cam sensors, you can't choose it. You can only choose Ford Coyote locked and Ford Coyote unlocked. Now, what some people do is they turn off the cam sensor reading and they get an aftermarket crankshaft trigger, but we couldn't get enough good info on that to actually make it happen. Now, we do know of one shop, Bombera's Performance, Boyd Bombera down there. I talked to him. They have the NA record for the Gen 3 Coyote. Actually sold him a few parts from Coyote Direct. But anyways, they actually had someone that doesn't work at their shop anymore, but they actually had someone make Holley work with a Gen 3 Coyote. What they had to do was get a Hall effect sensor, kind of like the same sensor you use for drive shaft speed sensor. And they had to machine the head to accept the sensor, and they had to do all these custom brackets. And they said they spent a week just trying to get that cam sensor stuff to work. And essentially, it just wasn't worth it in the end. So that is why we didn't make FL2K. Now I have decided what I'm gonna do moving forward with the project. I'm frustrated because the car has a brand new engine, brand new transmission, brand new turbo kit, brand new turbo, brand new fuel system, brand new wastegates, brand new blow-off valve, brand new intercooler, radiator, tubed front end, straight axle. I mean, now it's wired on Holley, and so I really want to get the car out, but it just doesn't want me to race it, I guess. So that's kind of the update on the car. That's why we didn't make FL2K, and I really wanted to make FL2K. So now, essentially, I don't know if I'm shooting for a specific race. I just want the damn car done. So we are working in the background, and you'll see in kind of the next couple of videos what we do, but we are working in the background on the next phase of the car and what we're actually going to do with it to get it running. And I will keep you guys updated, but I do apologize, didn't make FL2K, and I've literally been making videos for almost a year on my car being down. It sucks. It really sucks. But, you know, that is, that's part of it sometimes. And that's how it goes, unfortunately. I feel like I have like really bad luck with this car lately when I used to have really good luck with it. But like I said, this is what happens when you try things that haven't been done. You can't just Google, you can do it. Go Google Holley EFI on a Gen 3 Coyote and you're not gonna find much information. Now, if you Google Holley on a Gen 1 or Gen 2 Coyote, there's a ton of information out there. So it is tough when there's not a lot of information out there and there's not a lot of people doing it or trying it. You're essentially the guinea pig at that point and it's tough. Like I said, if you came up and said, I want a 9-second car, 8-second car, 7-second car, I could literally make that happen. I know exactly what it takes to do those numbers. But doing stuff like this, we're going out of the box. We got to spend a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of researching and trying to figure it out on our own. So I've already started working on the next phase of the car to get it running. It should be running within the next 1 to 2 months if everything goes as planned, but that's not usually how it goes. But I just wanted to update you guys. And it is pretty cool having the Mustang in my own shop, which is really awesome. And I'm really, really thankful to have all of these builds here. It's really cool. And shout out to you guys if you've ever bought anything from Coyote Direct, or if you're bringing your car here and you have something scheduled, that's pretty freaking awesome. But we've got to get working on my car and we got to get working on these other cars. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the update. I'm sorry we're not racing, but it is what it is sometimes. I'll see you guys on the next one.